up, everyone? I hope you're doing excellent today. It is Friday, May 28th, 2021. And Raphael Garcia here for episode number 87 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast over here on the MMA Ratings Network. As always, I thank you for taking the time to check out this show, for watching this week. I just gotta say, first and foremost, I'm exhausted, deadbeat tired. I just did my first, hardest session of training since our gyms have opened back up. So jiu-jitsu is back in the DMV, and man, I am exhausted today. It's been a tough training session, but I'm getting ready for competition again. So it was a hell of a day today. But there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about in professional wrestling. Let me put this light. That's getting on my nerves. It's like putting it on my glasses. Turn that a little bit. Nope, that didn't help. Let's put this one on. Nope, keep on. Come in from over there. Let me turn this back on. Sorry about that, folks. No production issue there, but we have a lot to talk about today because we will be talking the rumored partnership between WWE and New Japan. We'll be previewing AEW Double or Nothing, and that's it. Because it's a holiday weekend. I'm about to go eat, start drinking for the weekend, so you should probably be doing the same. Safely, responsibly. But before we do that, thank you for everyone again for taking the time to listen to the show. We are always available at our flagship at MMA Ratings Net, where you can catch us there at MMAratings.com. You can also always catch us on Instagram and Twitter at MMA Ratings Net in both spaces. You can catch this podcast over at Anchor, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and that's it. You can catch me at rgarcia_sports. We have a Tuesday show, MMA Ratings podcast, myself and Sean Hume. We didn't do an episode this week, but we'll be back next week because we have a lot to talk about. This weekend there's no fights, nothing like that, not Bellator 1 or UFC, so we are taking the week off from an MMA standpoint. But there's going to be a lot of pro wrestling going on. We got a pay-per-view this weekend. We have SmackDown tonight. AEW is also tonight because they had to move from Wednesday because of the playoffs. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump into that, and let's have a couple of conversations about what is going on in pro wrestling. So I want to start off with this story about WWE and New Japan. This kind of, I don't say it came out of nowhere. No one should really be surprised, but it definitely caused a lot of conversations today, late last night, and today. Dave Meltzer, he broke the news over at Wrestling Observer, and everyone else has kind of corroborated it since then. But WWE has been in talks with New Japan for the last few months about a potential partnership. And what is key about coming out of this is that WWE wants to be the exclusive American partner with AEW. That is a key term, because right now, as everyone knows, if you're watching wrestling, enjoying wrestling, New Japan is working with both Impact and AEW. So that would immediately throw a wrench into all of those plans. And what is interesting about this is because from a sports standpoint, if you're a fan of any other sport, basketball, football happens a lot, baseball happens a lot as well, where you see these stories about negotiations with teams and players, they get leaked. One side wants X, the other side wants Y, and they begin to negotiate in the public. UFC does this a lot. Dana White is a master of this because it allows the organization to control the narrative and turn fans against the individual contractors or the players. In this sense, it would be whoever leaked the story will be using that to put a squeeze on the other group. In my opinion, looking at this, New Japan perhaps stands the most benefit of leaks on because getting on like sorry about that. But New Japan stands to benefit the most and leaking the story because they can use that information to put the squeeze per se on AEW. because obviously they have been working pretty well with AEW so far. We've seen Kenta come over. We've seen Yuji Nagata come over. Tanahashi was on a video tribute saying congratulations to Chris Jericho. Ren Narita just had a match there. Kojima was over in Impact. I think Finjuice are the Impact Tag Team Champions still. So there's really a lot to really break down. Or are they? They may have just lost those belts, but they've been working with both groups since the end of last year, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens from this. Nick Khan in the WWE has been one of the main forces behind this conversation for the WWE, but this is pretty big. I mean, this is huge. WWE has not worked with any other organization since 1997. And if you think back to then, that's when they were working with AAA over in Mexico. They were working with ECW back then, but they haven't done anything since. They kind of positioned themselves as the isolationist, if you are a fan of history, and they have not worked with anyone. They hardly even acknowledge any other groups. I mean, hell, Kushida just had a match this past week against, who did he have a match with this week? He had the 2 out of 3 falls match with Santos Escobar, and I think that's when they mentioned it. But they had in the little rundown that is a multiple-time IWGP Junior Champion. Like, they never talk about that. Even with someone as heralded as Kushida, they barely talk about that with AJ Styles. I think they brought it up with Brock Lesnar because they like to try to use that to hype him up. He's the only WWE, IWGP, NCAA, and UFC champion in combat sports history. So they talked about it then, but I mean, have they even talked about that with Shinsuke Nakamura? I don't really think so. So to see them even being willing to have conversations with other organizations, I think that is pretty big moment. And it's interesting watching how the wrestling community on Twitter has responded. I mean, obviously, you know, that space is super toxic, and there's idiots running up and down both sides of the conversation. There's a time and place where you give both sides an argument, and it's not necessary. Like, it wasn't necessary when Donald Trump said both sides. It's not necessary when you're talking about Israel and Palestine. But when you're talking about wrestling Twitter, it's okay to bring up both sides, because both AEW fans, there's a large contingent of idiotic AEW fans and WWE fans, and just, you know, across the board. So you see people bringing up the, oh, well, no one watches New Japan, or, you know, WWE is going to stuck with this, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it is what it is. Would I be concerned if I'm a fan of New Japan stars such as Kota Ibushi, Tanahashi? Takahashi's hurt, but guys along those lines, I would be, because you can never really trust WWE with their booking. I mean, you can't trust WWE booking with their own roster, let alone them booking anyone else's roster. So I don't think that being apprehensive about that is wrong in any way, shape, or form. However, it still brings up some interesting conversations. I saw something that kind of popped out to me that made me laugh. It'll never happen. But Jon Moxley is an IWGP champion right now. Imagine if him and Roman fought for the United States Championship in a New Japan ring or in a WWE ring, something along those lines. Like, that could technically happen. I doubt it. I mean, Tony Khan would burn that place down before it ever could happen. But that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be very, very interesting if there's something, if we find ourselves in a situation like that? Also, in this report, they talk about Daniel Bryan quite a bit. And obviously, the reason why Daniel Bryan comes up is because his contract ended back with that match against Roman Reigns a couple weeks ago. And what stands out is that he's already been a vocal proponent of wrestlers in WWE wrestling other places and being able to go do other things. And I even wrote about this, but it would be interesting to see if he kind of creates Chris Jericho's 2018. And I talked about this on the show. I wrote about it. or maybe I didn't talk about it on the show because I've been out for so long. But in 2018, Chris Jericho was in New Japan. He was in WWE. He was in AEW, back in New Japan, and also in ROH as well. So that man was all over the place. So it's interesting. It'd be interesting to see if Daniel Bryan can do something similar and kind of recreate what Chris Jericho did back in 2018. If anybody can do it, it would be him. I wonder also what that would mean for other opportunities for the WWE to partner with some groups. We've seen them work with some independent organizations with NXT, such as when Alex Shelley just popped up and teamed with Kushida. Hell, Tyler Russ was in New Japan and NXT in the same week. Granted, the New Japan taping was previous, but still, you've seen stuff like that as well too. They were working with Evolve for a while before they purchased them as well. The MLW talks have been going on. I don't know if that's still going to be a thing that happens, but that would be interesting to see too. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of opportunity there. So we'll see what that looks like. Let me get a sip here because my throat is killing me. I, for one, am skeptical personally. I don't think it's really going to happen. I think that I think it's in the best interest of AEW or New Japan to keep working with AEW. Because I just don't see, looking at WWE's creative right now, I would not be interested in what that would look like. We know New Japan is kind of in a down period right now. Of course, they have a situation with Jay White being hurt and vacating the title. They don't have a champion right now, and they don't have the eyeballs that they once did a year ago, 2 years ago. I don't think going with WWE will build that. It might give them a brief spark, but the WWE fan isn't going to tune into New Japan for an extended period of time. I just don't think that's going to happen. If they're going to grow their fan base in North America, I think it would be best for them to go with AEW and glean fans from that space. I think those fans are more likely to watch both shows as opposed to WWE fans being more likely to watch both shows. It's just different to me, in my opinion. WWE is no longer in the wrestling business. They're not. And I'm probably going to write about this eventually. They're in the content creation business where their goal is to create as much content as possible to keep getting these distribution deals. And that is exactly what has been occurring. That's why they're making bank year over year. Yes, they had to do a lot of cuts this week. We saw Todd Phillips get cut. We saw Josiah Williams that came out today that he's been cut. So you see that going on. The background or behind the stage personnel were also released from their contracts. So you see that situation going on. But they continue to make content and they continue to get these bigger deals. I've been seeing some talks. I haven't really kind of delved into this too much, but I've been seeing some talks about a potential sale, which, I've been hearing about that for a while now. And it's interesting because I once stood my ground to UFC would never be sold. And look what happened there in 2017, when they were sold. So that one caught me way off guard. And at that point, I've been, well, anything can happen. Anybody can be sold. So I would not be surprised if something like that happened. I would be surprised. That's a lie. I would be surprised, but maybe not as much as I once was because we've seen it. We've seen it before. But yeah, this is an interesting day in professional wrestling business just to hear them talking about that, because I guess they see the benefit of what it's doing for AEW and Impact. It's just, I don't trust their booking. I do not trust them to look at someone like Okada. I mean, yeah, they could probably look at Okada, Tanahashi. Excuse me. I mean, New Japan has some talent. Jay White, Ibushi, who WWE wanted, but he was like, yeah, I'm out. Like Takahashi, Tanahashi, Okada. I mean, Minoru Suzuki, I don't know if he'd quite fit. I would see them probably doing something with Toriano too as well, just from a comedy standpoint. But I just don't trust. They can't book their own roster. They have Asuka on their roster. They can't book her. Can barely book Shinsuke Nakamura. Kushida was off television for weeks. Could barely book him, and now they finally got him in a solid position. They can't book Mustafa Ali, Ricochet. There's so many guys on their roster and women that they cannot book right. How am I supposed to believe that they can book another promotion correctly, properly, and giving them the respect that they deserve? I just don't see it happening. But I'm just one jilted WWE fan. Let's move on and let's talk about the other topic from today, and that is Double or Nothing. That is on Sunday. We'll be previewing that card. And before we jump into the card, I really just want to say this feels like not a refresh, and I don't want to say relaunch, but it feels like something special this weekend. I was going to try to go to this, but I was basically I didn't pay attention to when the tickets were going on sale, so I missed out on that. I'll be going to Florida instead next month. Can't wait for that. But I was trying to go to this. It didn't happen, so maybe I'm going to try to go to All Out in Chicago. But this feels like kind of a reemergence, maybe, because they're going to have max capacity crowd on Sunday. We haven't seen that in a year. It's been a year since we've seen a year plus 16 months now that we have not seen a max capacity crowd. We'll be getting that on Sunday. That we'll be getting. There's going to be some debuts supposedly. This is their last event in Daly's place before they begin traveling again. So this is kind of like let's light the match and let's create a spark. And I feel that energy going into this show. And there's some, how we do here when we preview pay-per-views, we talk about the matches that interest us, myself, and I don't talk about the ones that don't, but there's a lot on this card that I think that is worth talking about. So we're going to talk with the pre-show first. Serena Deeb and Riho, I'm interested in that match because both of these ladies can go. I think they had a match during the women's tournament and Riho won. So this is for the NWA World Women's Championship. I don't expect Serena Deeb to lose that belt. She's good. She's great, actually, and I would like to see her keep it and keep some shine and keep some shine as well. So let's see what she does there. And I'm really interested in that match. I expect Serena Deeb to win. This card is kind of the order is a little weird here. So let me start from the bottom. The Young Bucks versus Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. I expect Moxley and Kingston to win this. The Bucks are pretty cool. I mean, they are what they are. I'm not their target audience. I'm not a big fan of their shtick. That's just me. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of them. I like Moxley and Kingston. They're more my speed, more my taste. Just beat people to fuck up. I'm not here for all the flippy shit. Sometimes I'm here for it sometimes, but they just do spot after spot after spot after spot. I'm just not a fan of that. I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I get their gimmick. I get why people love them. Just not for me. So yeah, it is what it is. I expect the Bucks to lose here and Moxley and Kingston to get the win. Moxley and Kingston are so hot right now, man. Fans love that duo, and I get why they do. They are everyman. The only thing is, I wonder when Moxley's going to go away for a little bit because Renee is about to have their child, so I don't expect him to be on TV as much for maybe a little while for that. So let's see what that kind of looks like. But with her about to have their child, I wonder how much longer he'll be on television before he goes away for a little while. Maybe this is when he gets written off. Sting and Darby Allin versus Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. The only reason why I want to talk about this match is because I don't care for it. But the reason why I don't care for it is because Scorpio Sky is in a weird, weird place. SCU split up. He was, a part of SCU, the central part of SCU, I think, in AEW. And he hasn't said anything about it. but he was teaming with Ethan Page before they split. And it was almost as if it was just forgotten about or not necessarily mentioned. But why put him back in another tag team? I mean, I feel like a lot of people have been wanting to see Page get a push, a sustained push. It just hasn't happened. I don't see how it'll happen in this situation here because Darby's no longer the TNT title champion, so you can't beat him and then get a title shot. And he's already lost, I think, 2 shots at the TNT title, one to Cody and one to Darby. So what are they really doing with Scorpio here? I mean, are we going to get to a point soon where they're fighting, where they're beefing Scorpio and Page? You know, what does that look like? Who's the heel? Who's the face? They just turned Scorpio Sky. So what is that situation going to really be like? I mean, I have a big shrug there. And then we have Sting in the ring. Sting is wrestling an actual match. This isn't going to be a cinematic match. He's actually going to be in the ring. Let's see what happens. Darby Allin's going to have his working shoes on, and he's going to be out there putting on a show. You know Darby can work. If you had any doubts about Darby being able to work, look at his just his AEW docket, and you can see the man can go out there and work. That match with Miro last week, not this Wednesday, but last Wednesday. Chef's kiss, as my ignorant brothers do. Chef's kiss. That man can go. He put on the show last week, so I'm interested in seeing what he does because he's going to be the one carrying the load for their team. And let's see. This is Stadium Stampede. I don't care. I don't. Why are we having? It seems like it's weird. I feel like they booked Blood and Guts because they promised doing Blood and Guts last year and they couldn't do it, so they wanted a reason to do it. But this match shouldn't follow Blood and Guts, in my opinion. Blood and Guts was the blow-off. That was it. They have that match. The feud is over. The Inner Circle breaks up after that match. But for them to have another match after that, Stadium Stampede, where if the Inner Circle lose, they break up, it's like, okay, well, that's clearly what's going to happen because you're not going to have to beat the Pinnacle, right? And if they do, why? I think a lot of people have been talking about Jericho's about to go back on tour with Fozzy, which, okay, is excellent. So they're kind of leaning towards the Inner Circle losing. I mean, I don't care as long as we get LAX and Sammy Guevara as far away as possible from that group. But I'm not excited for this match. I'll watch it. I'm going to be watching Double or Nothing late because I got dinner that night. But whatever. Miro versus Lance Archer. This is going to be a big man. Was it sirloin beef, sons of bitches, as Sean Ross Sapp would say, match here, or as Biggie would say, big meaty men bumping meat. These motherfuckers are going to go and they're going to have a house battle, and I can't wait. I expect Miro to win. Miro, man, his turn has been excellent. This version of Miro is what we've always wanted to see, even back from in the WWE. I'm liking it. I'm here for it. Let's see this big man do some work because he can definitely do some work. And Lance Archer can as well too. He's been really exceptional these last 5 years or so. So let's see what the old former Lance Hoyt can do. It'll be a great match. Adam Page versus Brian Cage. Yeah. I'm not quite sure how I feel about this match. We know Adam Page is going to be elevated at some point to face Kenny Omega. We know we're getting that. But they had Page lose to Cage 2 weeks ago, clean, as a sheet on AEW. And they'll run this match right back. Why? Like, again, that's why I kind of ask why. Because why do they need to run this match straight back? I feel like they could have done something else, maybe. Maybe they didn't need to have that first match, and this could have been it, and you could have Page go over. I expect Page to go over in this match here, but then what? They're 1-1 against each other. Who moves on? Who advances? Who advances in that situation and who kind of gets elevated? Again, that's that old 50-50 booking situation. Do they have a third match down the line? But again, why? Like, if they did that, then this should be the third match, like the blow-off match, some type of stipulation match or something like that. And they could bring that in to the feud, but it doesn't really kind of feel that way. I think it'll be a good match. It'll be a hard-hitting match. Pages look good in AEW. We know Adam Page is great as well. So let's kind of see what I think from a standpoint, that standpoint alone is going to be a great match. But I'm just kind of like, why are we doing it this way? Let's see. Then we have, oh yes, the match I don't care about, Casino Battle Royal. Skipping that. I expect Christian Cage to win. Cody Rhodes versus Anthony Ogogo. We talked about this. We talked about Cody's promo. I think we talked about it last week. I wrote about it. I mean, I don't need to say anything else about this. Anthony has to win this match. Patriotism, bullshit aside, nationalism, bullshit aside, I don't believe they built Ogogo to come in here and lose. I don't believe so. If they did, if they are, Cody being Cody. But I'm not one of those individuals that'll sit here and try to claim Cody is burying people, because he's not. He hasn't buried anybody since he's been there. I mean, he's put over MJF. He put over Brody before Brody passed. He lost the ladder match. I mean, he doesn't go out there and steal the spotlight. He has a big presence in AEW. I expect next year for us to see a stipulation where he has that stipulation about him not being able to challenge for the title lifted. I expect to see that in 2022. Because he's too big of a star not to have him around that belt. But this match here, he has to drop. I expect him to take two of the PSPs, what people are calling it, the pants shitter punch. And I expected him to he'll probably take the first one and he'll kick out or something like that, or he'll fight back to his feet just like Americans do, and then he'll get laid out again, which I'm a fan of. Like, drop him where he stands. We've talked about the issues with that promo. Go back and read my piece over on Daily DDT when I kind of laid out why the promo itself was problematic. But yeah, Anthony has to win this match. They didn't build him up for nothing. Then what do we have? We have the women's title match. Now, this is going to be, I think this is going to be good. Hikaru Shida has been champion for 370 days now, I believe. 371, something along those lines. And she's been a great champion along the way. It's a little unfortunate that I feel like the talk has always been around, great, Hikaru Shida's champion. When she's going to drop the belt to Britt? When she's going to drop the belt to Britt? When she's going to drop the belt to Britt? And I think that, I don't want to say diminishes, but it takes a little bit away from Shida's title run. But Britt has elevated herself. She's made herself the focal point of the women's division. And even though she's lost the match, she's lost the Big Swole, which I actually kind of talked about, where it's interesting. I would hope Baker wins the title, and you have both Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa and Big Swole saying, hey, we deserve a shot because we've beaten you. They've had feuds. Both women have had feuds with her. Both women have pinned her. And I think that needs to be addressed. And I think it will be addressed. AEW doesn't forget about stuff like that. They do a good job of acknowledging stuff like that. So I expect them to acknowledge that. And I expect those two women to be Baker's first feuds as champion, but I expect her to come out as champion in both of those. But I definitely expecting her to win this match on Sunday as well. She's due for that moment. She's going to get that moment. I think that she's going to be something big time, even if I'm not the biggest fan. Then we have the main event, Kenny Omega, Orange Cassidy, and Pac. Now, I'm going to say this first and foremost. Kenny Omega's winning the match. Period. The only man that's going to take that title off of Kenny Omega is Adam Page. And that'll maybe be what is it? All Out, maybe. Whatever, that's their next show later on in the year. But Kenny Omega's walking out of this match with the belt. I think it's going to be a good match. I'm going to call it now that Pac eats the pin. I think that Orange Cassidy is just he's too over, and I can see them extending Omega's feud with Cassidy just a little bit longer, and he'll get the win again in a singles match. Kenny Omega's not losing this title here, and it's hard to kind of see when he's going, because he's going to be defending that AAA title against Andrade in August and against Moose before that. Moose is going to beat him too. He's not losing to Moose. Not nobody. There's no way in hell he would lose the TNA title to Moose. That Andrade match though, that's the one that's catching my eye. A lot of people have kind of hinted at maybe Andrade being a secret entrant in the Casino Battle Royal. I don't know how I really feel about that. But let's kind of really see what happens here. I think Omega wins. I think Pac eats the pin. It's going to be an excellent match, but I think Pac eats the pin. Orange Cassidy and Omega is an extended feud, and we go from there. But that, man, Omega's not losing any matches until perhaps that Andrade match. That is something I'm looking forward to. That might be the one that he drops. So those are my thoughts about Double or Nothing. I'm excited for the card. I'm interested. I'm looking forward to seeing what the night holds, what the night brings us. I just feel like there's a lot of energy going into it. People are excited. People are hyped, and that's kind of where we want to be with pro wrestling. And I'm really kind of looking forward to that. But that's it for this weekend, for this show. It's Friday. DC's not open yet. We have 2 more weeks before we can get open and we can go out and party. So let's buckle down. Let's stay safe. Let's get to that point. I hope you're staying safe around wherever you may be when you watch this. But as always, you can find my content starting off at @rgarcia_sports. You can find everything that I promote there. All my wrestling work is over on Daily DDT. My MMA work is over at MMA Ratings. Right now, it's just a weekly podcast. I haven't been writing in quite a while. But as always, I appreciate your time. Stay safe out in these streets. Wear your mask. Black Lives Matter. And we'll see you next week. And stay safe, everyone.